100% washcloth.
And why are you moving the bread?
All right. Hi, I'm Natalie.
And I'm Amy.
And we're Stella's Table.
Today we're making sourdough bread.
Let's bake. For the sourdough bread, you will need 50 grams of sourdough starter, 350 grams of water, 5 grams of sea salt, 15 grams of Stella's Table lemon garlic sea salt, and 500 grams of bread flour.
The equipment we're going to use for the sourdough bread is a cast iron Dutch oven, a scraper, a razor blade, dish towel, and a Banneton. You're going to need a kitchen scale set to grams to start your sourdough bread. So let's begin. We're going to put a bowl on the scale and we're going to tare it, which basically means we're going to set it to 0. Most kitchen scales will have that tare button. So now it's at 0. We're going to add 50 grams of our sourdough starter.
Sourdough starter is wheat flour, white flour, and water. That's it. So if you go onto the internet, if you want to start your own, there are plenty of recipes there for you to find one and start your starter.
The really cool thing about the sourdough starter that I learned from my science husband, so seriously, check your facts, folks, because I'm trying to remember what he told me. But basically, yeast is in the air, and so the flours and the water are eaten, or actually the yeast eats those flours, and that forms the bubbles, the byproduct CO2, which creates those bubbles in your starter.
You sound really smart right now.
Don't I?
But one of the cool things about it is that wherever you are, there's different yeast in the air. So that's why, for example, San Francisco is really known for its sourdough bread because of the yeast in the air there. You can't replicate San Francisco sourdough anywhere else because wherever else you go, there's different yeast.
Pretty cool. Now we're going to add our salts and our water. First, make sure to tare your scale again so you're back to 0. You can either pre-measure your water or you can just add it as you go and using your scale, 350 grams. Go ahead and start pouring it in. We've already measured, but why don't we make sure that it's 350. Your water should be tepid, so a little bit warm. And then, ooh, getting there. See how I did? Ooh, looks like we're a little short. Grab a little more. All right, so for this recipe, we're also adding lemon garlic sea salt and a regular sea salt. You can do a variety of things with your bread. We do citrus salt with honey to give it a little bit of a sweet taste. We've added cinnamon. We've done all sorts of different things with our sourdough bread loaves. Yeah, go ahead. Dump her in and dump her in.
All right.
Again, you can pre-measure your salts or you can use your scale.
Right.
Once you've done that, I'm going to push the scale this way and we're going to incorporate using a fork, stirring. You want to get it all incorporated before you add the flour. The important thing to do here and note is that you want to get the bottom of the bowl unsticky, right? Because that is a sticky mass. So make sure when you're coming through, you're paying attention. You can swirl it this way and that to make sure that you get all, so see I don't know if you guys are able to see there, but I want to show you that we're getting all the bottom parts of that starter off. So don't worry too much about the herbs, etc. on the side. Get a little messy, don't worry about it.
Now we're going to add 500 grams of flour. We've already weighed this, so we know it's 500 grams, and we're going to add it slowly to the mixture.
And you can wait to stir till it's fully in the bowl. The thing about sourdough bread, I was listening actually to the radio the other day when we were thinking about using this as a topic, and they were talking about how sourdough was like the one thing that people did over the pandemic that made them feel in control somehow.
I didn't do sourdough. I just bought a 3-pound bag of yeast and started making a bunch of bread.
So that's why you have that big list of breads you've made.
Although we did make it as kids as well.
So using a fork, you're going to incorporate the flour into the liquid mixture and you're going to form it into what my husband calls a shaggy mass. So using your fork, make sure you get all the sides. Eventually here, I'm going to use the scraper to make sure that I get all of those elements combined.
It's not going to be that smooth bread ball that you are probably used to seeing when people make regular bread, right?
Not at this point. Later, it's going to look more like that. Yes, absolutely. So using your scraper, right, the best tool ever, you can get that off. And now you can just use it and go in there and get those sides and really work the dough, getting all of the flour incorporated. And you can see it's already kind of forming that shaggy mass. We've turned our dough into a shaggy mass, and now we're going to cover it with a wet towel. That's going to prevent the top from getting crusty and dried out. Set it aside for 30 minutes. It's been 30 minutes, so we're going to stretch our dough. You're going to do this in the same bowl, and you're going to keep it in the bowl. Stretch the dough back into the middle on each side, and you're going to notice the dough's getting nice and firm. Make sure you close the seam, cover with a damp towel overnight, and just let it sit on your counter.
All right, it's time to get this started. So we're going to lightly flour the surface.
And then we're going to turn our dough that's been sitting for 24 hours out onto the floured surface. You can use your scraper to get all of it out. Look at that.
Sticky.
Yep. All right. Now we're going to do that stretchy thing again we did earlier to build more tension in the bread. So you're going to pull and bring your seams to the middle on all sides. And you should feel that dough getting nice and firm.
You can tell just by doing that.
Once you get that, make sure you kind of push it all into the middle, and then you're going to flip it so the seam side is down.
Right. Which is going to allow it to grow into itself versus out. It'll help with the height of the bread.
How pretty that is.
Gorgeous.
Now let's let it sit for 5 minutes. We're ready to move the dough into our Banneton. First, lightly flour the Banneton on the sides and on the bottom. And then you're going to take the dough and turn it seam side up into the Banneton.
So what exactly will the Banneton do to the bread?
Well, the Banneton is just this. This is a lined Banneton, and it will just give texture to the bread.
And if you don't have one?
If you don't have one, use a regular bowl, put a dish towel inside, and the texture from that dish towel will also give you texture on the bread. So it's not a requirement to have a Banneton. Again, my husband just got obsessed over the pandemic, and so we have every possible bread making thing known to man. So go ahead and drop it over.
Woo! Cover the dough with a damp dishcloth. We're going to let that sit for 60 minutes. Turn on your oven to 425 degrees. In 30 minutes, you're going to put your empty Dutch oven into the oven to heat up.
Before the dough goes into the oven, we're going to turn it out onto parchment paper. Cut a piece of parchment paper in a large square to start. She did a really good job. We're going to take the towel off of the Banneton. We're going to put the parchment paper over, and we're just going to turn it over onto the parchment paper. Lift it off. So now what you want to do is you want to take a little bit of the flour and sprinkle it lightly. And you're going to rub that all over the bread a little bit more probably. Yeah, and you're going to just give it a nice rubbing, a little bit more on the sides over there. And get that bread covered a little bit with that. Then you're going to take the salt and you're going to sprinkle. Now what you're going to notice happens here with this sea salt is it's going to fall to the parchment paper. So we're going to use our hands and lightly press it in. Pick up the rest of it that's on the sides, and let's get that actually on the bread. Using a razor blade or a sharp knife, whichever you have, we're going to create a nice deep slash in the bread. And although this is what makes the bread pretty, it also serves a purpose. It allows the bread to expand evenly throughout the loaf while cooking. You can't be shy. You got to go in and really slash this. So cross your fingers. Here I go.
Let's go. Do it.
And that is
that's how you do.
Perfection. Let's get this bread in the oven. Using all 4 corners of the parchment, you're going to lift the bread so that you can keep the shape intact. And you're going to carry it over to the oven. After 20 minutes, we want to remove the lid from the Dutch oven. The first 20 minutes, the lid needs to be on there to keep the steam in so we have a crusty loaf. But now we want the loaf to brown. So we're going to take the lid off and put it back in for 30 minutes. It's been 30 minutes cooking uncovered. So let's check our bread. You should have a nice, rich brown color to the bread. It looks perfect to me. Okay, let's pull our bread.
It looks beautiful.
And go ahead and knock on it, Nat. Want to knock on it? Does it sound nice and
sounds
hollow?
hollow. Yep.
Which means it's ready. That is absolutely gorgeous.
Cut it.
It's time.
I'm hungry.
so excited.
This looks so good.
Here we go.
That sound, that crunch when you cut it.
Crunchy, crunchy, crunchy. Look at that.
Okay,
Just want more piece?
just cut that in half. And we can,
Really? Now these.
well, you know,
All right. Here we go.
Cheers. Cheers.
Oh my God.
I love
This is absolutely
bread.
delicious.
The lemon garlic sea salt in there totally flavors the
Inside just
section.
the right amount. The crust is super crunchy. There's a lot of nice, yummy air bubbles in that bread. The dough, oh, so good.
perfection. Find the link for this recipe in the description below and on our website at stellastable.com. 350, 50, 5, 15, 500.
Yeah. We have a baton here. It's not a baton. It's Banneton. It's a Banneton. Everything has a 5 in it.
I need to defry
Everything
that.
has a 5 in it. That didn't help?
No.
The equipment we're going to use for the sourdough.
And
So-
what does tension do?
So you're going to. I mean, why do you go off script?